Hi, I'm Adriana Gill Wilkerson, and I'm a marriage and family therapist working in Houston at the Houston Galveston Institute, where we do collaborative dialogic therapy and are actually very good cousins of the narrative therapy family. So I'm really happy to be here.
I'm Diana Carlton. I'm on the faculty of the Houston Galveston Institute, and I live in Galveston, looking at the beach right now. And I teach and train and do some supervision and have a private practice in Galveston and Houston. And really happy to be here too.
Good morning. My name is Richard Bellaquadra. I am the founding principal of Xavier Academy, and I would describe the Academy as a place where we put into practice collaborative practices into the everyday educational experiences of the school.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Renee Thomas, and I manage arts integration programming at the Alley Theater here in Houston. And basically what that means is we go into schools and we teach K through 8th core content, math, science, ELA, using theater arts, using our bodies. And within this past 3 years, we started integrating social emotional learning as well. So explicit SEL instruction on connection.
Well, I'm Caroline Tremblay. I live in Galveston as well, Texas, and I work as a transplant social worker at the hospital here, the University of Texas Medical Branch, and really happy to be here today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hi there, I'm Jim Duval. I'm also live in Galveston, and I'm the editor of the Journal of Systemic Therapies, and as well connected to the JST Institute. And we do a bit of training, writing, all the usual antics that go along with that. And I'm thrilled to be here. I'm really looking forward to this. And I'll pass it back to Adriana.
Thank you. So we decided to split our hour into 3 segments to tell 3 different stories. And during, for the first 15 minutes, I will be the host and Jasmine will be the storyteller. So I wanted to say a little bit about why I chose Jasmine and invited her to join us. She and I have worked together for the last 2 years in different schools. She providing those arts integrated educational experiences that she was talking about through her work at the Alley Theater, and me as the mental health partner. And through those 2 years, we've really gotten to know each other. And I just love hearing the things that she talks about. And I love learning from her. And I thought of her as soon as I saw this invitation. So I'm very curious about what's been going on with Jasmine and what she chose to tell us. So why don't you go ahead and start sharing with us, Jasmine?
Oh, absolutely. First, it's just, that was so touching. Thank you, Adriana. And I'm just so excited to be here and being a part of this event. And even when you first told me about it, I was just like, yes, absolutely, yes. And then it was like, what story do I have to tell? I've been in quarantine, I've been at home. The first thing that came to my mind, because of how we know each other, is how much I'm used to being around people. And, you know, with my job, I'm in classrooms all day long. I'm in meetings with adults. I'm in training sessions. And I'm always in very large groups of people. And this has been the biggest shift, the biggest shake is only being around my family. I have a calendar up, 64 days, 65 days. And that was the first thing that came to mind, and it made me really think about how we're going through a lot of changes right now due to, of course, COVID, and due to theaters being shut down and all that kind of stuff. And so I've done a lot of reflection about my own job and my position. And it's one of those moments where it's like, I am so much more than my job. And in these situations, when your job has completely taken a whole new face and is completely something new, and I think that's when I can really sit in that and be okay with that. And like, it's changing sands, but what I bring to the table, that it doesn't get diminished. It's not any less, you know. So when we were first informed about all the quarantining and social distancing measures, we were already, of course, taking heed to trying to stay home as much as possible. And I'm very close with my family, and it's me, my two sisters, my mom and my dad, and our nephew, or my nephew Calvin. And we're talking about it, and as soon as things started going south for the oil business, you know, we live in Houston. One of my sisters lost her job, and I'm like, whew, man, that's rough. That's rough. A couple days later, they closed down restaurants. My dad's a restaurant manager. He loses his job. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so unfortunate. Wow, thank goodness I have my job. My little sister, she does behavioral therapy for autistic babies. She lost her job. Oh man, wow, that's crazy. And I just was like, oh, how lucky am I that I am secure and I am safe, and you know, our job is really fighting to make sure that we're good. My mom, she's an infection preventionist, so her job is very protected right now. And then the news came to us, and we had to do some temporary layoffs for about 2 or 3 weeks. And it was then when I realized that transition was really real, because it was like, I might not even have this position anymore. This position might not exist. And then you start thinking of, again, me being more than just my job. What does this mean? What does this mean to be socially distanced in classrooms? Adriana, you've seen the work I do. We're all up in each other's face. There's no 6 foot, there's no 6 foot separation. And knowing that I couldn't, being temporarily laid off from my position, made me have those bigger thoughts of, what is a position like mine going to look like in the future? What does arts integrated teaching look like? Which now that I've done this job and I've seen how it can change lives of students and teachers, how do you do that when you can't connect physically? And that has just been the ongoing question. You know, I don't have an answer yet for that, but luckily I'm back. They're able to hire us back on. But it was that moment of kind of feeling like everyone else's worlds around you getting shaken, and you're like, I'm good, and then yours gets shaken, and it's a wake-up call in more ways than one, and I really felt it. And being back now, and it's a whole new, I still don't know what this is going to look like, what these next steps are going to look like. How do you teach students that are already struggling with connecting about connection when you can't physically connect? I'm figuring it out, but I'm not sure yet. Luckily, I've been able to do some events over Zoom. Like I did a couple of script readings, and I tutor. I'm tutoring an adorable 4-year-old student in Pennsylvania over Zoom right now, which I would have never had the opportunity to do had not been for our current situation. And I mean, a 4-year-old, he's just so precious. But seeing him laugh and smile and have fun during our sessions and learn, of course, it's like, okay, connection is still possible. It's just different. It's very specifically curated. And I am a spur of the moment gal. So curating connection also can feel, I don't want to say ingenuine, but it's just different. It's different.
So you're mentioning a lot of things that I'm connecting to. One is just that sense that you described of sort of like things unraveling around you and just kind of watching and thinking, okay, well, I'm okay. And then suddenly it's something else that hits closer. And I think a lot of people experience that. And the words that came to mind for me about that are um, shock and loss, and also a little bit of hopelessness, maybe in some way. When you were talking about that, I was also thinking that around the same time as you're seeing your parent, you know, have his job kind of pushed aside, and your sisters, um, I was thinking about the kids at the schools and how they experienced just a complete, like, we're going away for a week of spring break, I think is when everything happened here in Houston,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then not coming back at all, and sort of trying to figure out how do we connect with the people who don't know what's going to happen when we don't know what's going to happen. All of that was kind of coming back to me, and I'm just wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, no, we've been doing this, so, SEL integration work for 3 years now. In our first year, we were at a school where the population was in just dire need of coping mechanisms and just hugs and love. And it was such a life-changing experience. But what we realized was when there was testing and it interrupted our schedule, when there was holidays and it interrupted our schedule, if we did not come every Monday like we were supposed to, we would come back and the kids would not want to talk to us. They would cuss at us. They would say, I knew you were going to leave me. I knew it. And I said, leave you, I'm right here. It was just 1 week. And so as soon as we weren't coming back to the school this year, I was just like, when we finally do come back, that's what we're going to be received with, where you can't even get mad at them, but they're mad at you for making them want to see you again, and you failed them, and you didn't make that promise. And that is, that's a very hard burden to bear. And to feel that connection with 180 kids isn't he? And I can only imagine what educators feel right now, like those full-time teachers in the classrooms that just had to leave. I just see these babies twice a week. I can't imagine if I saw them every day and have to just leave them with this feeling of abandonment. And I'm not saying that everyone feels that way, but seeing how it can get, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah.
I'm also thinking that on the personal creative side, how working with you for the last 2 years, when we have obstacles or just challenges, how you and I have been able to just get creative and sort of push through and be a little scrappy and get some things done, and how it has felt when an obstacle came up and we thought, oh, well, maybe we could do this. And guess what? No, we can't. We can't just do teleservices to these schools, or we can't just do this particular way. So it's testing the waters and not feeling like a right kind of wave, and then having to step back was also, I'm hearing that too, like a frustration that sometimes comes through from the kids, but I definitely felt it for myself.
Yeah, it's that loss of control. We are problem solvers, and we are like no nonsense problem solvers. And I pride myself. It's kind of like it's part of who I am, is that sometimes to a fault, when presented with a problem, I'm like, all right, bet, here's 5 solutions. I'm ready to go. Let's start with A and work our way down. And when you're met with a challenge that you're sitting over here and you're churning, and these solutions really can't happen, you feel that loss of control, which everyone is feeling that loss of control. It's not unique to us, but it's like I'm grasping at straws. When I'm looking at my schedule, and I have this huge wall calendar now because I just can't keep anything straight anymore. I used to have meetings from 8 a.m. to sometimes 7 p.m. Now I'll have a couple a day, and I can't keep anything straight. And I think it's that that losing grasp of control, and then it's like, okay, I just need help now. I just need help to keep it together sometimes. Yeah.
That's another thing I connect to, is that sense of time not really being exactly where it needs to be, or how it needs to be. So I feel like I might miss something, or I have missed something, and it's a frustration that I don't think we're used to as a general society. When we move by appointment, we move by destination, and right now we don't have many destinations.
That is I'm like getting chill bumps because that's just such a perfect way to say it, especially with my job, because I'm almost never at the office. I'm at this school, I'm at that school, I'm having this meeting. And I do think about my day, living all the way in Humble. All right, so I gotta drive down to Sugar Land. I gotta drive over to Katy. My day is destination to destination, and that's how I keep my schedule, knowing that my destination is my makeshift office at home. That doesn't help me keep things straight.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your time with us, and I will stay until the end because we might be able to share a few more words when everybody's done, but I think it's time for us to pass the wave on to Diana and Richard.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Jasmine.
Thank you, Adriana.
Hi, Richard. So that seems like a perfect segue into what you might be talking about, although I'm not sure. So I just wanted to say for a few seconds why I chose you to want to interview. And I know you from the International Certificate in Collaborative Practices program, and you own and run a private school, Xavier Academy, which is I've kind of seen evolve through the work you've done. And you have a fascinating story, so I thought that would be great to hear this. I love hearing the story. And the story's changed, I imagine. I haven't heard this part of the story, but how does a private school that depends on money to operate and participation, how are you doing it? And how do you think this has affected you? And what do you think it might look like if and when this thing is ever over, is what it feels like now. So that's a lot of stuff. You probably need an hour to talk about that, but just pick and choose whatever you want of that. I'd be very curious to hear your views on things right now.
So in hearing your questions, the thing that comes to mind for me is about one of the things that's special about the school at Xavier is that we really focus on this relational approach to learning. And when we were asked to stay home, that was one of the biggest challenges in question is how can we continue to be unique and provide this special connection to our students, our teachers, you know, where we really rely on connecting with our kids, and that relationship is a lot of the driving force behind the learning that takes place at school. And here comes COVID-19, and now we have this distance that in a sense gets in the way of. And so one of the biggest things that we had to figure out is how do we keep those connections? How do we capitalize on the relationships that we already had? And how do we use that to keep the momentum going? And it's been an interesting process. Just to give you a few ideas. So first of all, how do I communicate with all the families what's happening at Xavier and what the plan is, right? And if we're going to focus on this relational approach, well, I could do a video that I could send out, but does that feel connection? That's what a lot of principals did. I could send a detailed email, which is what a lot of schools did. But if we were going to focus on the relational thing, how do I do that? So I picked up the phone for a whole week and called every single family to let them know this is what we're doing. And it was really interesting because it didn't turn out to be a 5-minute call. It wasn't.
I would imagine.
Let me share with you what the plan is. It was really an opportunity to just connect, and yes, provide info, but also check in and see what did each family need, what was going on, what were they thinking, how do we respond to their particular circumstances. And the same thing with the teachers. You know, it's really opening those channels for communication, and then figuring how do we continue to connect in the way that we we did on an everyday level when we were physically present, you know. So my staff and I really got to be creative. You know, another example I'm thinking of is our staff meetings. So instead of using that as a time to provide information and say, okay, here's the plan, guys, or here are the things that we need to talk about, it was, you know, we'd spend an hour just checking in, you know, just what are the things that are in people's minds that they would like to bring to the table, and just have conversations, right? We've been doing that for parents. We've been doing that for the kids. We've been doing it for teachers. So we're running a lot of different groups. On Thursday night, we did one for parents where there were a dozen of us through a Zoom meeting, just going through an hour and a half of experience of connecting. And it's really incredible to hear how the strong relationships that we formed throughout the year have really helped us sort of get through these last couple of months, and to hear how much we are missing that, right? That it's really it highlighted how much time and energy we spend connecting with one another, because that's what we're missing the most, right? The academic pieces that's going on, and the learning piece is going on, but it's these connections. The challenge, and here's the piece going to like to your question, like how do we do this as a school that charges tuition, that you know has these things going on, is so even though we're doing things online, how do we continue to do it in a unique way that really helps us stand above and beyond what most schools are doing? So I can say, like with most of our students, they really are being taught from 9 to 3. They, you know, we've created a program for them so that they're engaged throughout the day, at least for the kids for whom that makes sense. I would say 75% of our kids, they wanted school to keep going. But for the small group for whom these circumstances have really affected them differently, then how do we respond to those unique circumstances, and how do we do it in a way that makes sense? You know, and it hasn't been easy. We've had a dozen families who have been affected financially.
Yeah.
So that's a dozen families who no longer are able to pay tuition, right? But if we are true to the mission, that doesn't mean we have a dozen less kids. You know, this is the time when those families need us the most. You know, so you remove that financial piece out of the way, and at the same time, as a school leader, I have to make financial decisions that make sense to help us sort of prepare for the unknown. In the last 2 weeks, I've let go of 10 people.
Wow.
10
hard.
people, yeah, who valuable members of our community, people who had a lot to offer, good teachers, good people. But I had to pick and choose, because if I don't let go of these 10 folks, then the other 40 people's jobs might be at stake later on. So there's a lot of challenges, and then how do we inform people that we care about, that I'm not gonna be able to pay you. You know, I can't invite you back. I can't. And I know maybe you are the only person in your family right now who has a job, and yet I still have to make that decision. It hasn't been easy, but at the same time, I've been surprised at how understanding people have been too, even when they hear that info.
Well, what struck me, if I may interrupt it for one moment to make a comment, was in the beginning, and you've kept this theme throughout, that you have this focus on the relationship, the collaboration, and you notice that has made a difference now, that building that. And the logistics are important and they're there, but you're using the relational piece as the most important piece. And the logistics are sort of coming into that. Like when you called each family, I mean, wow, that's a lot of work, but it sounds like it's really important. And then the challenge, I mean, many challenges, but how do you maintain your uniqueness? Because that's one of the draws to your school. It is very unique. If you just walk in it, you can feel it, that it's unique. And how do you maintain it online? I mean, all the schools are going online, so that's not very unique, right? So that just sounds like an ongoing challenge to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's allowed us to maintain that unique quality is the passion that the teachers have for the work that they do and the connections that they have with their kids, which like I know my teachers are not working an 8 to 3 workday these days. Their workday still starts at 8, but they're still working 8, 9 o'clock at night sometimes, right? Because they're providing a lot of one-on-one time to the kids. So even though they may have their class time, there's all this one-on-one that's going on that teachers are doing of their own volition. Like that's what's really, I think, made us stand out is how much time and energy the teachers have put into making sure that the kids are okay, whether it's academically or simply just checking in with them. You know, I have you brought to mind one of my math teachers. So I've been having meetings every morning, every hour. I have a meeting with a group of with a family, and I have a couple therapists there. I have a couple administrators present, and we check in with the family. And then I have the team that can respond to whether it's academics or anything else as we're checking in. And I've been hearing a lot of positive things about a teacher. So I asked this. I happened to run into this teacher at school when I went to check the mail. And I asked her, I said, what is it that you're doing so well right now that parents and kids just keep saying awesome things about you? And, you know, her response was, so I know I can't hold their attention for a whole hour of class time.
Right.
So I've condensed it to 5 or 10 minutes most of instructional time. So I just focus on what's the most important thing I want you to learn from this lesson. And then we spend the rest of the hour just checking in and talking and how are you doing and all that. And as a result, these kids are motivated to do the work and to turn it in. So, you know, for this teacher, finally it clicked that she's getting the most work by being indirect, by focusing on the relationship. These kids are doing so much more math. You know?
Really, math.
I know.
Well, it sounds like she's taking your lead. I mean, it sounds like what you did. You called each of the parents, you spent the time, focused on the relationship, and so then they're okay with the logistics, and that's a larger version of what she's doing.
It's been fun to see all the hard work that we've put in for many years really being tested by these circumstances, and seeing people apply things without them really realizing that they're applying the principles that we've been talking about.
That must feel good. So they're not working so hard at it. It's more just a way of being.
Yeah.
In your school.
That's one of the positive things has been seeing how much as a community we have really grown into understanding this social emotional IQ kind of.
So I know you can't have an answer to this question now because there's so many unknowns, but at some point this is going to go away. I mean, it could be the fall, it could be next year. And I'm just wondering what thoughts you have about what you're going to take with you from this. Like everyone says we're not going to go back to the old normal. We're going to have some new normal when this has run its course. So what do you think your new normal might possibly look like?
Part of it is that the online component to learning, to education,
Mhm.
is here to stay.
So more focus on that than in the past.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, for me, having opened a campus in the Woodlands and Memorial, you know, and even in Mexico City. So one of the things I'm taking away is, in order to keep doing what we're doing, is it necessary to have different campuses? You know, with
Uh-huh.
this online component becoming a bigger part. It was always a part of the school, but it's become
Right.
a much bigger part. It's really given us an opportunity to recreate ourselves again.
Yeah.
It's something we're really good at. And to give you an idea, I currently have my nieces and nephews. One of them, two of them in upstate New York, one in New York City, and another one in Pennsylvania. And then I have another kid in Mexico City, another one in Alabama, and they're all taking courses with us right now. So
And that wouldn't have happened before.
no, no,
Oh, okay. So there's an expansion possible.
absolutely.
Good.
I even have an instructor from Mexico City that's doing a screenwriting film class that he's teaching from Mexico City. You know, so it's given us an opportunity to expand and find people from all over and connect.
That's
Yeah, so that's
interesting.
one of the things I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because it's something you could have done before, but there was no need to do it, right? No motivation to have to do it. And now it makes perfect sense. And that why wouldn't you keep it?
Right. Yeah, it's accelerated that. It was
Mhm.
something that was that was in the making, that we were doing a little bit of, and
Mhm.
now it's kind of like, now anyone who wants, come on in. Let's. I'm going to be interviewing some Spanish teachers in Ecuador and Colombia. Why does my Spanish teacher now need to be in Houston if we're doing online?
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, it's I'm taking that this is also an opportunity for us to explore and to really practice um, the incorporation of technology, and for me the fun piece is how do we continue to relate to people even though it's different. How do we find a way to keep it the same?
Yeah, yeah, that's been a challenge for me too. Just I'm minimally technical and I've had to get better at Zoom. And I'm still not going to say I like it. I'm not going to go that far, but I like what it does for me, that it allows me to see clients I wouldn't see, have, would have taken longer to get them in. And I don't go to Houston every week. And yeah, so that part I'm going to keep too. I'm not quite sure how, but it's going to make a difference.
You know, not having to commute to work.
Oh
Or
my God, it's wonderful. That part's good.
my teachers and I, that's one of the things that we really appreciate. So we can enjoy our cup of coffee in the morning, you know,
Mhm.
before getting started,
Mhm.
you know, just for the sake of having coffee, as opposed to let me have my coffee while I drive and get to school. You know,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm. Gas is cheap, but we're not driving. So that's the point, right? Yeah. So what did I not ask you? Well, there's a lot, but that, and it doesn't even have to be on this particular topic, but about your story that might be worth sharing right now.
hmm. uh, you know, being a leader of a school, and just being put in a position where the leadership really matters more than ever.
Yes.
Um,
See that.
so
Mhm.
um, you know, facing the challenge of, okay, despite everything that's going on, um, I have this huge responsibility to keep it together, right? And at the same time, find the balance of keeping it together for my family, my friends, keeping business going. And it's a huge balancing act. And with so many unknowns, the one thing that I have learned to really appreciate about all this work is, you know, this concept of really being public and sharing with everyone the challenges that we face as a community. And as a result, that's led to more community building as well, because we're trying to solve things together, and so it's just this part of uncertainty, and not really knowing what's coming, and trying to be okay with it, and at the same time really being worried by it because of the decision making that needs to take place, right? In my case, how many teachers do I keep? What programs can we offer? Where do we need to make cuts? Are we going to be present physically? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be a hybrid program? How do we keep social distance? Like all these things that we're still waiting for the districts to publish what they're going to do, so that we kind of know what we're going to do.
Well, I'm really struck by the heightened sense of responsibility, because when you were saying that, I'm thinking, and back in the other normal, you were ultimately responsible, but there were other people that could pick up the slack that knew you without even saying it, probably, right? They just kind of knew. And now that's gone. It's not diluted. It's you, and you have to make conscious effort to draw others into that. That must feel pretty overwhelming, I would guess.
It can be. It can be. And yet it's a challenge to show that, because I don't want my son to see that. I don't want my wife to stress out over those pieces, right? And I can't definitely show all that to my staff, because then they will worry. Right? So it's been a very interesting process, and really, yes, pain. So another gift is that I've been able to pay a lot more attention to myself and all these thoughts, and really, but actually have the time to think it through, which is perhaps one of the gifts that, even though it's a challenge, it's also having the time to really process.
That's really new, because you're always on the run, from what I know before. Driving everywhere, as our previous, I think Jasmine talked about. Well, Richard, I'm real aware our time is done, and we don't want to intrude on the others, but thank you so much. And it's good to talk to you, and I've missed you. So this is a good opportunity for us to have a conversation.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah. So turn it over to Jim and Caroline.
Okay. Thanks, Diana.
Yeah.
Is this working?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, good. I'd like to, like Adriana and Diana, just take a second to introduce Caroline, and why we decided it would be a good idea to have this conversation with her. Just to be transparent, Caroline's my partner, and as she said, she's a social worker in a heart transplant unit at University of Texas Medical Branch here in Galveston. The upside is on a good day, she can ride her bike to work along the beach. But during COVID, I think it's added some new challenges that we didn't plan on. So I've got to witness her having to navigate a lot of complex issues between her personal and professional life, and was just drawn to hear more from her about her experience of living life in this liminal COVID-19 twilight zone that we're going through right now. So Caroline, can you speak to this and give us an idea of what you're going through?
Sure. Thanks, Jim. So as Jim said, I work here at the hospital. I'm a transplant social worker. So I'm with a team of other social workers, and we do transplants with people who have kidney failure. We do liver transplant and also heart transplant, which is the area I'm with. And during the last few weeks, navigating all the changes related to COVID-19 has been difficult at times. When I was listening to the other stories in the last hour or so, there are themes that I think I would say a lot of people, if not everyone, may have experienced. One of them being things are different. And the other one was the impact of COVID-19 on relationships. So the relational aspect of our lives, friends, coworkers, neighbors, everyone has a story around that, how things are different and the impact on relationships. In my work, what I became aware of in the beginning of the COVID-19, when the hospital established new policies to protect our patients, I became aware that things were more than different. For me, things felt just like a new world. And some of it became apparent to me in just small ways. One of them would be, I'm walking into a hospital room and I'm wearing a mask. So one thing that I always do when I go meet patients at the hospital is smile. It's a natural way for me to interact with people. And suddenly I'm smiling behind a mask. And it took some adjustment for me to appreciate that, well, they're not going to see my smile, but they'll probably hear it in my voice. So in many small ways, I had to learn to adjust to the new normal and make sure that I was still able to do the work that I love to do in a way that feels comfortable for me. The other aspect that became quite difficult for me to adjust to, and I don't know that I have, when the hospital had to make significant changes to protect patients and to protect the staff as well, they established a no visitor policy. That had a profound impact, I think, on all of us, and especially on the people being patients at the hospital. At times it was sad because we had a hospital with no families in it, just the patients in their room, isolated. And up until now, obviously, I always believe that relationships are very important. When people are sick, when they're in the hospital, having family members visit and spend time with them is essential in their recovery. But witnessing that and being part of that on a day-to-day basis just opened my eyes to the profound impact of not having that support. As much as the medical staff and us social workers can do a lot to help people get better, having a family member provide that support as well, I think is as much part of their recovery as the medical aspect can be. So we would have, freshly transplanted patients have to spend weeks in the hospital without having a visitor come in. Eventually, we found ways to make some exceptions when it felt so crucial to have a family member there that we knew we had to ask for that permission for them to come. I saw, this one patient was very withdrawn and not communicative at all. And finally, one morning, we got his wife to come so she could be part of the conversation with him. And that morning, he was a different man, completely different, transformed. To have his wife there, that he could hold her hand while talking to us made a huge difference. So that's one aspect of my work that I, had to learn to be with. I don't know if I was able to really come up with any great ways of adjusting to it. It was just what it is, but it, I think, opened my eyes to what it means not to have that support when people need it the most.
Carolyn,
Yes.
can I just jump in with a question here? You got me thinking about, so then you're kind of thrown into this limbo space, and something as normal as having a family member come in gets changed and you had to work around that. What effect is it having of our governor now opening things back up? What effect does that have on you and on the hospital and another change?
Mhm. Well, I mean, one of the effects of the changes now in the States with things reopening is now they're, opening up a small window of time, basically 2 hours a day, where visitors can come, family members can come. So they're, I guess maybe testing the waters very carefully, so that we can assess what's going to happen. And even that little bit is making a difference. When people know at 4 o'clock today, somebody's going to come and spend, a bit of time with me, it makes a huge difference. And within that, maybe they're supposed to be there only for 30 minutes. But I think everyone is so touched by that aspect, that relationships are so important that usually it's not like someone is going to come to their door at, after 30 minutes to say, okay, now you have to go. So there's, I think, a lot of flexibility within that change, because we all know how important it is. And so the other thing that I've been reflecting on, and I think Jim, that kind of came up when we were talking about doing this storytelling, you and I, and we talked a little bit a few days ago. And when we were talking about the impact of COVID-19, I was sharing with you how one day when I was driving and I was thinking, okay, restaurants are going to start to reopen now. They were given the, green light to open at 25% capacity. And suddenly, we're flooded with, Facebook posts, restaurants are, we're opening again and please come and see us. And I realized that instead of feeling joy that, okay, the businesses are going to be up and running again, I felt a profound sense of sadness.
Say more about that.
Yeah, I felt sad, and it really threw me off a little bit because I couldn't quite make sense of it. And I think what I maybe came to realize that the sadness, there's in a way, a little bit of a sense of joy or a celebration that businesses can reopen and what it means for people who work there, that they can get, employment again, and those businesses can function and make money and do what they do, serve the public. I think the sadness for me was related to the realization that we live in a world that focuses on competition, spending money, or, economy is based on people buying stuff, selling stuff. And I was wondering, what does that do to us? I think that when everything was normal, I wasn't thinking about it because that was the way of life. We go out, we go to restaurants, we go to stores, we just spend money. And then that was gone for a while, or suspended, or those services were provided in a very different manner. And having that liminal space of things being completely different then gave me a chance to step back a little bit. And so the sadness is not, I don't have a conclusion to it. I think it was, for me, more of a asking myself, well, what does it mean, to live in a world that focuses so much on that type of an economical system? What does that do to us as people?
You use the word step back and the sadness. these are my words, not your words, but are you kind of saying that you kind of were touched or got in touch and were able to step back and kind of critically look at it? It was, you know, like we were all fish in water in a way, and now we're stepping out of that and we can see it for a little more clearly for what it was. So it's somewhere along that line, not that it has to be, but that kind of sadness, being in touch.
Yes, I think so. Sadness is being in touch and going forward as, you know, life starts to feel more normal. That normal is not going to be like before. So I don't want to give up that sadness, because to me, it helps me stay in touch with the wondering, you know, as we go forward, what could be different?
Right.
And I don't know yet. I think I have to keep traveling with that.
Is the sadness going to help you? I'm going to steal a question from Diana. Is the sadness going to help you take something from this liminal experience that you might be able to take as we go toward whatever the hell that's going to be that we're heading toward? Is there, like, was there a new way of seeing things? Any skills come out of it? Being able to smile while you're wearing a mask, you know?
Yeah, actually, yes. The questions you're asking are what I've been thinking, what's coming up for me. And it reminds me of that saying, you know, before enlightenment, chop woods and carry water. After enlightenment, chop woods and carry water. Those things don't change. But the person doing it has changed. So I think, to me, that what I'm taking forward with me, hopefully, may be a different way of being with people. So when I say to someone, yes, please do come and see your family member in the hospital. Relationships are important. Makes a difference. Well, I'm going to say it again, but I'm going to be a different person saying it. Relationships are important. If someone says to me, I feel like I'm not a man because I can't work anymore, I'm going to ask the same questions I would have asked before, but I think this time I'm going to be with them in a different way, because obviously they're feeling that effect, living in a society or a culture that values production, you know, working, having a job, having that type of an identity. So it's going to be, yeah, carried forward as probably a different way. I'm still going to chop woods and carry water, hopefully with a different.
You're saying that because we have the advantage of having the other two go before us. And the relational aspect seems to be, I don't know, it looks to me like it's a pretty strong theme. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's, could be not generalized out, but if that's going to get taken up in the broader discourse. I wonder if people are going to value relationships in a different way after going through this now. You know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to talk about. Maybe we could get another hour from Steve.
Yeah, Stephen here is making a comment, sadness as testimony to what we hold precious.
Yeah.
Helps me stay in touch with the wondering. Yeah, I think that kind of captures that. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm wondering if we might want to invite our co-host to join into the conversation for the last few minutes and see if they have something else that they might want to add.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anybody else? 1 or 2 word comments or anything at all?
I have something. Carolyn, I loved it when you said you'll be doing the same behaviors, but you'll be doing it in a different way. That really touched me. Mm-hmm. And you said it so eloquently. Thank you for that. That's what I'm going to come away with.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about the relational piece that Jim was mentioning right now, and it made me reflect on our pairs and I was thinking about the relationships that we create and how we end up being like bonded with certain people. And I was just thinking about my relationship with Jasmine and how out of a work context we've come to be such good friends. And I have the same thing with Diana and Richard. And I think Jim and Caroline, I've known them for a few years and feel close to them when we're around. And I just can't help but wonder about that.
Well, having turned 73, I can tell you that about all I have left is relationships. They become way more important. So should it be anybody else? Any last words?
The one thing I take away is that after an hour today, somehow I feel like I know everyone a little bit better.
Yeah, I feel the same way, you know, for like, I didn't know you, Richard or Jasmine. I know the other people, but I know you differently now.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to get to know Jasmine well enough to miss her like I'm missing you all.
I would say the same. It's been such an experience just listening. And once I turned off my camera, I felt myself tearing up a bit. Just being able to sit in a community and listen and really listen with we're trying to get this and we need to get this done, but just we're talking and listening and connecting. It made me start crying a little bit. It's beautiful. So thank you guys once again.
Well, we can do our own Zoom without Steve.
I think we will, yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Steve. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Steve.
Could I be invited to that, or is that?
Sure.
Yes, I'll forward you the link. We are actually meeting.
I wanted to say, Jasmine, what you said just made me want to cry, because it's really the spirit of, you know, what I hoped for this, that gentle being together without that sense of we got to get something done, and you know, just ride the wave together. So I just want to thank you all. It's been an honor to listen into your lovely stories and conversations, and I hope we have opportunities to get to know each other better. Jim, it's lovely to see you again. Thank you for taking up the invitation to make this hour happen. I'm really grateful for that.
Thanks.